Any cracks coming from Oregon this upcoming Friday? Can Michigan State even make this somewhat competitive? Well, let's find out.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm here too.
Hey, what's up, Spencer? Hey,
hi, Matt.
Guys, it's Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans. Over there, it's our good friend Spencer of Locked On College Football. But today, specifically, Locked On Ducks. This man does it all. But before we're going any further, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's do this, Spencer. You know what? Let's actually kick this off on that gambling note from FanDuel. Right now, as things stand, 23.5 points. That's how much you guys are favored by over there.
That's down. That's come down. That was 24. There's 24 earlier in this week. Is there sharp money on Michigan State money line coming in?
Right. That's smart financial investing right now. But no, whether it's 24, 23.5, especially that line comes out, your first thought is
Oregon deserves to be favored by that much over Michigan State. And I think Jonathan Smith is a really good coach. I think he's off to a good start, quite frankly. Competitive against a solid Boston College team on the road in messy weather conditions. Beating Maryland to start Big Ten play. Is Maryland great? No, but guess what? You won, and that's thumbs up. Smiling over there.
That's a daunting road test, too. That is a loud stadium. Probably
Maryland.
Than Autzen. Yeah.
Maryland, a classic conference opponent for Oregon who's going to show up at Autzen Stadium later this year, just like Michigan State will on Friday night for the first time since 2014. I liked that game. It was a top 10 matchup. This one is not that. And when you look at everything on paper, Oregon should win this game by a lot. They should push for, if not cover, that particular number. I tend to think that they will because I think they're a much better football team than the one that slugfested their way to a 24-14 win against Idaho. But I think you've got the better quarterback. I think you've got the better running backs. That's maybe where the position groups are closest. The receivers, edge Oregon, offensive line, defensive line. Oregon stole Michigan State's best guy. This is just position group advantage Oregon everywhere that you look, and it's why the Ducks are a big favorite.
Not to talk about our ex on this show, but how is Derek Harmon doing for you guys? We're going to get more nitty-gritty and ask you specific questions later on, but let's just get that
I'm glad that you're not Instagram stalking your ex with a tear rolling down your eye because he is one of the 5 leaders in quarterback pressures this season in all of college football. And if you narrow that down to interior defensive lineman, I believe he is top 2 or 3. Regardless, he has been exceptional. I think there is an easy case to be made. He's been Oregon's best and most consistent defensive lineman this year. Now, Jordan Burch, one-time South Carolina transfer from a season ago, he's also been very good. And a lot of other guys have been productive. But if you ask me right now which defensive lineman is most important to Oregon's defense, my answer is Derek Harmon.
That's just awesome. I just love hearing that. No, defensive line hasn't been too bad here for Michigan State. We just did an episode not too long ago. That's actually been the surprise so far this season is how much they've punched above their weight. Because, in the offseason, that was the big storyline. Simeon Barrow and Derek Harmon both leaving. So, great to see him do great things. But, again, we'll get more into the nitty-gritty specifically about our teams here in a little bit. But let's just do the broad blimp overview right now, Spencer. You guys are starting undefeated. You're in the top 10, of course. Oh, you guys are so good over there at football in Eugene, Oregon. But, what we saw in week 1 against Idaho and then close game against Boise, a really good Boise team. Let's not get it twisted right after that. Have those concerns washed away after those 2 games? Because obviously, you guys have played since then. You guys have had a really good win against prestigious, established Big Ten team UCLA just last weekend. Is all the worries just gone from Oregon after those first 2 weeks?
I wouldn't say all the worries. And don't forget the 49-14 drubbing of a program in Corvallis that might beat the program in East Lansing right now. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I mean, ask Purdue how easy it was to play Oregon State in Corvallis. I mean, look, if college football were to do anything like the NFL, I wish it would be scheduling and basically nothing else. And anytime a coach leaves one big-time school for another one, those 2 programs need to play next year. Like 2022, USC's first game should have been against Oklahoma. That would have been must-see TV. Mario Cristobal leaves to Miami. Who should Dan Lanning's first game have been against? It should have been against Mario. That would have been fantastic. Jonathan Smith should have kickstarted the year against Oregon State. That would be really, really fun. But I wouldn't say the concerns are washed away. If Oregon built themselves a sandcastle through the first couple of weeks of concerns for Oregon fans, the tide is moving in to wash that sandcastle away. You can still see the remnants of it, and fans are aware of what that castle looked like once upon a time. You can see kind of the foundations of the towers, but they're not as tall as they used to be, and used to have this really cool moat. Well, the moat's kind of been removed. That's the offensive line. So I think Oregon has really sorted themselves out. I think they're a much more fluid team, particularly on offense, and that's why they've played well the last couple weeks. As crazy as it sounds, and it won't to Oregon fans, last week's 34-13 win against UCLA wasn't even that close. Okay. They outgained the Bruins. I think it was 439 to 188. It was a big gap. There was just a pick six, and things got away at the end of the half there. But Oregon was just fine. So they're a much better team than they were a couple years ago. Does not mean they've played their best football yet.
Can we just, I know you talk with the team all the time personally. You're texting them all the time in your group chats.
I was texting Dan Lanning 2 minutes ago before we hopped on. Yeah, that's sarcasm, by the way. I'm not doing that. But that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
We'll see. But anyway, you can get his number and see if they could overlook Michigan State here to next week's opponent. Ooh. Because, look, there's obviously is 24-point underdogs or 23, whatever the number is. We're grasping for okay, where's the roadmap to victory here against a really good team on the road 6 days after you just played another really good team in Ohio State. One of them is maybe catch a team sleeping and looking down the line here. Can you promise that your team will be unfocused going into this Friday's game?
I can't promise they'll be unfocused, but I can't promise they won't be unfocused and looking ahead. I think we've seen the look ahead factor in college football my entire life, and probably well before that, but especially now in the age of mass media, and players and coaches can tell you they don't hear the noise and they don't think about this, they don't think about that.
Right.
You think in the back of Dan Lanning's mind there isn't a thought, hey, we better have our team ready to go and play a good game this week as we go into Ohio State, or we have to know how to get our team ready for Ohio State. Like the word Ohio State, I can't confirm this because I haven't been at practice. I'd be shocked if the word Ohio State hasn't come up at Oregon's practice at some point this year. I think Oregon knows where they're at as a football team right now. Can you have the look-ahead factor? Yes. Is this game scarier just by way of being on a Friday night? 1,000%. 1,000%. You have a really good head coach, Friday night, look ahead. That's a trifecta of ways in which Oregon could not play their best football or not get off to a great start or be a little bit sloppy. I don't know that I see a roadmap for Michigan State winning the football game. I see several roadmaps for the Spartans making this more uncomfortable than Oregon fans would like it to be.
What's the of the whole roadmap? What highway is just the freshest paved? Like what could happen to Oregon, or what is there that you just worry about to make this, somewhat of a close game here for us State fans? Throw us a bone here right now, Spencer.
That defensive line has to win against Oregon's offensive line. I think that's the point that it really comes down to. Oregon has only struggled offensively this year when their offensive line has struggled. Once their offensive line figured it out second half of Boise State and on, they've been great. Not good. They've been great. They put up 21 points in a quarter and 28.5 against UCLA. They put up 49 and did not punt on the road against Oregon State. They've been able to run the football. They've incorporated some play action. They've got the RPO game. Dylan Gabriel's using his legs a little more. If the Oregon offensive line holds up, there are too many weapons for this offense to not succeed.
Fair enough. And we're going to flip it right now. You're going to grill me about Michigan State here in a hot second. Just get all down to the nitty-gritty about that team in green and white, shipping on over from East Lansing. But first, Spencer, got to talk people's ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, I do a sick thing. My listeners know this, but here's some for your listeners. Spencer, I do something called Hedge My Happiness. So, you know what? Actually, before my Detroit Tigers took on the Houston Astros, I bet on the Astros to win that
Go
series.
Tigers. Go Tigers, baby. Big Mariners fan here. And guess what? I will sit here and say, big Tigers fan today.
We're all shoveling dirt on the Astros right now. This is great. But hey, you know what, Spencer? If I had to watch the Astros win, I wanted to be paid out for it. And I did that financial common sense tactic over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. But of course, as we all know, for you normal bettors out there that don't hedge your happiness in some weird twisted way, you can just place bets like a normal person on college football, NFL. They got the futures, the props, the lines, the same game parlays, and of course, keeping it in tune this football season for Sundays. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And best of all, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, FanDuel.com. All right, I'm in the hot seat right now, Spencer. Grill me about everything you want to know about this.
Oh, gosh. Do I get to put on my cross-examiner hat from mock trial in high school and just grill the witness on the stand? Here's the first question.
Yeah, let's go.
Here's the first question I have. How capable do you feel this Michigan State team is of executing what I'd consider roadmap number 1 towards a stunning upset or an uncomfortable game for Oregon fans, which is what Oregon State did for one half a couple of weeks ago in Corvallis? Run the ball, don't really pass it, run the ball a little bit more, control the clock, run every play clock down to 0, essentially run chew clock in the first half. How capable are the Spartans of doing that on the ground?
For Michigan State to run the ball?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? Well, listeners of the podcast of Locked On Spartans know my answer. It's not inspiring. It's not the worst run game you've ever seen in the entire world, but based on what you saw from Oregon State, Jonathan Smith, Brian Lindgren in the last few years, that's a team that wants to run the ball. That is shown just, their play calling, but also their run-pass ratio. It is heavily slanted to the run over there in Corvallis. This year in East Lansing, not so much. Even that rain-soaked game at Boston College, they were airing the ball out at a pretty heavy split against the run just because there's not a lot of confidence in the run game. They do more damage on the outside zone run than the inside zone runs, but it's just not enough where I think right now Brian Lindgren can call the offense the way he wants. He's got to use Aiden Childs a little more because that's your playmaker on the offense. You don't really have any in the running back room. Yes, K-Ron Lynch-Adams, he's got that Isaiah Pacheco run DNA with him where he just runs like a Rottweiler.
We have an Isaiah Pacheco clone. His name's Jordan James.
See, they're fun to watch, right? But they don't get a lot of help from the offensive line, which in East Lansing has been bruised, battered, and my goodness gracious, we are starting a true freshman at left tackle. Speaking of a lot of Idaho talk on the show so far. 3-star from Boise, Idaho, Rakeem Johnson. He will be lined up.
Look, here's all I'll say to Spartan fans out there. If you're superstitious, which I'm not, I'm incredibly superstitious.
I am, yeah.
Currently, the only football players to cause Oregon problems have been from the state of Idaho. This does not only extend to the Vandals in week 1, Boise State in week 2, but for a half, Oregon State played Oregon to a 1-touchdown game, and then Oregon shut them out in the second half. Their quarterback, Giovanni McCoy, transfer from Idaho. So if you have that aspect, I'm just saying that there are worse things that you could have going for you. But where does that leave the passing game? Because I talked earlier this week here on Locked On Ducks about how the defensive game plan, to me, for Oregon is make sure they can't run the ball. That is key number 1. You take away the run game, and Aiden Childs, 8 picks, 5 touchdowns this year. What's wrong with the Michigan State air attack?
It is human cryptocurrency. That's what I tweeted the other day as he faced Ohio State. And it has felt like that the entire season, literally from the first play of the season, was an interception. Now, that was a great play by the defender. I'm not going to slight Childs for that. But he has had some moments, whether it's just inaccurate throws or just bad decision-making, that's hurt Michigan State. But at the same time, the very next drive, you're going to see a throw that you will only see made on Sundays or from maybe 10 other quarterbacks in college football. To the sideline, 20 yards downfield from the opposite hash. So every drop back is a game of Russian roulette with Aiden Childs. It is fascinating, so you will get the good, the bad, but hey, with the run game being as pedestrian as it is, they kind of have to rely on it. Now, I will say, like you said, 8 interceptions. It's looked rocky. I think he took really good steps last week against Ohio State. His interception came in the second half just on a bad throw on a screen, really airmailed it. But for the first time all season, for a whole half, he did not put the ball in harm's way against a really good Buckeye defense. So growing pains are what we're used to over here in East Lansing. That's just been the talking point of the whole podcast. But we are seeing growth. We're seeing the growing part of these growing pains too. It's just slow but surely. We're going to work our way up there.
Yeah, Childs is a mega talented guy.
He is.
Like a Sunday kind of guy, but he's a long ways away from being that caliber of quarterback right now. But I want to ask you about the Michigan State receivers, because if he's going to have success, they have to get separation. And Oregon's pass defense this year has flat out been phenomenal. Last week, Ethan Garbers, 12 of 20, 118 yards, 2 picks. Maddox Madsen, Boise State, under 50% completion. Giovanni McCoy, Oregon State, wasn't tearing anybody up. Jack Lane, I think that was the quarterback's name, from Idaho. It was so long ago at this point, I barely even remember. But Lake Oswego High School grad, shout out to the Lakers. I just look at the way this Oregon secondary has played this year. They are deep. They are talented. They're playing at a really high level. What do the Spartans bring to the table on the perimeter?
I think it's fine. I don't think that, I'm going to upset too many State fans by saying that. I think that's an accurate description of the wide receiver room. Look, Montorie Foster, Jerron Glover, solid, outside. But we also have true freshman Nick Marsh, who, of course, we think the world of. He had a monster game against Maryland. I also think that was a little bit more about how bad Maryland is in the secondary than how good Nick Marsh truly is right now as a true freshman. Like, he is a star, don't get me wrong, but man, I think that was a little bit more of the terrapins. So it's fine. Now, what does help is that, hey, here's something that didn't happen against Boston College. They're healthy. Like, Jerron Glover and Nick Marsh were both out for that game, too. They came back last week against Ohio State. Jerron Glover had some nice moments, Nick Marsh, too. But, yeah, I do worry about this receiver versus Ducks secondary matchup, just because we've seen some good secondaries, but nothing quite like what we just saw last weekend, which we did decent against in the first half. But, man, the Ducks secondary does scare me, so I will confess that right now.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason the secondary for Oregon has been so good this year is the defensive line has been very good so far this year. And that Michigan State offensive line, I don't know if Oregon's defensive line is on Ohio State's level, but boy, they feel like they are very close. They're at least in the same class.
Yeah. And that's been the storyline of the offseason, is how little offensive line depth we have. But Spencer, that's just depth. Who cares about depth, right? Well, it turns out when you lose your starting guard and then his replacement, both for the rest of the season, then you got to slide your left tackle over to play right guard. And then, hey, it's our good friend Rakeem Johnson from Boise, Idaho, who's a true freshman. He's got to play left tackle, get his first start against JTT and Jack Sawyer of Ohio State. Well, that's the kind of dire straits we're in right now. With all that said, the pass protection has been, I think, pretty good. I'm not calling it outstanding. I'm not calling it world-beating, but it has been pretty good, all things considered. Does it help you have Aiden Childs, who can extend plays with his legs? He's got good pocket presence. Of course, but it could be a lot worse in the pass protection game. The offensive line for the run game, just like we talked about, it leaves a little bit to be desired. They are making more havoc on the outside runs and the inside runs, but it's been a patchwork offensive line even this early in the season before the calendar even flipped to October, Spencer. That's the kind of fun we've been having over here.
Yeah, it sounds like a grand old time. And look, Oregon's been there. In my lifetime, it happens. Yeah. It can be rebuilt, and I think Jonathan Smith will do a good job. Might take a year or two or even 3 to get to where they truly want to go. But last grilling question, Your Honor, and then I'll allow the witness a brief recess. When you look at this Michigan State defense, they look better on paper to me than UCLA. I think as a team, Michigan State is better than UCLA. What is the strength of this Spartans defense?
It's the guy that wears the hat on the sideline named Joe Rossi. I mean, he is very fluid game by game, even just personnel too. Like, we lost some big key players early in the season, and he's throwing former walk-ons in there and still making it work pretty early in the season. But it's just the secondary has taken such great steps forward from where they've been the last 3 or 4 years. Now, is that saying a lot? Absolutely not. They were either dead last or second to last in every passing defense metric that you could even name in Big Ten play. But they're getting great production out of guys like Charles Brantley. Okay, like, that is some fantastic coaching out there. Malik Spencer, yes, he had some gaffes last week. Overall, plus player. Nikai Martinez transferred out of UCF. It's been really solid in the secondary despite some injuries, and we've just been starved for that kind of secondary production for a while. Here, Spencer, it's been sad times. So it all starts with defensive coordinator Joe Rossi, the big hire from Minnesota, and it goes down to the players, especially in the secondary.
What should we talk about in the last segment? Any ideas?
Volleyball team looking good over there.
Yeah, I think so. They were in the Elite Eight last year. Really good.
Let's go. Let's go.
Really good.
Hey,
Yeah, let's talk volleyball when we come back from the break.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, we're not going to do that. All respect to a wonderful sport.
Volleyball's the best. All right. So, Spencer, let's actually keep it with our good friend Rakeem Johnson, the left tackle, because you know what? You mentioned this guy earlier. Jordan Burch, I believe 3 sacks on the season so far. He's been a really productive player for the Ducks. That's who I got to be scared of, right? We did talk about Derek Harmon, of course, but as far as middle offensive linemen, all right, Michigan State fares okay with that. It's Jordan Burch versus a left tackle that's a true freshman. I don't think that's overreach as what I should lose the most sleep on, right?
Well, here's the problem. However much sleep you're planning to lose because Burch is going against a true freshman starting in the throes of Autzen Stadium with 60,000 strong screaming at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
He's not the only guy that could make him look foolish. Tatum Tuioti, Mateo Uiagalelei, these are true sophomore edge rushers who both had key roles last year as true freshmen, and they look to have taken a step forward. Jaden Moore, as a redshirt freshman, is playing a bigger role than some people thought. I think that Jordan Burch has been as productive as Oregon has needed him to be this year. He single-handedly blew up a UCLA drive last week. That's what he can be. Now, the glimpses of that level of production, that 5-star talent he was coming out of high school all those years ago when he went to South Carolina, it's been fleeting. It has its moments. You know, he takes over a drive, he goes tackle for loss and sack on consecutive plays, and then what do you know? When you're 13 yards behind the sticks, you're not going to convert very often. He can do that, then he can go away for a little while. But I think what's great about Burch is you can line him up inside, you can line him up outside, and they have got a deep rotation, particularly on the edge of defensive linemen. So remind me of the true freshman's name for Michigan.
Johnson. Yep.
Yeah, Johnson is going to
Johnson.
see Burch. He's going to see Mateo. He's going to see Tatum Tuioti. He might see Marion Winston. He might see Jeffrey Bossa, a fourth-year senior linebacker, blitzing off the edge. He's going to see a lot of different people. They mix and match with their personnel. They don't rotate quite as much as they did a year ago, but they have a lot of different playmakers who have been really good so far this year. And I feel really good about Oregon's defensive line going into this game.
And let's talk more about one of the keys that you just mentioned right there for your Ducks. It's just eliminating the run game for Michigan State. Right now on the season, I see 4.5 yards per carry allowed from the Ducks, which is just somewhere in the middle of the pack. However, you guys get the asterisk, the fact that you played Ashton Genty.
Yes.
So
the AJ asterisk, as we can call it.
Yeah, that's no small potatoes. Arguably the best college running back since our guy Kenneth Walker over here in East Lansing. But take the Boise State game away. Are you satisfied with the run defense? Do you think that's going to be, just like a no doubt they will shut down Michigan State's run game?
I'm still stuck on your take of, is Genty the best college running back since Kenneth Walker?
Yeah, you like that?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It's pretty darn good. No one is popping into my head immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm missing anybody. I don't think we might have to come back to that one. But
yeah,
yes,
that's a good bye week segment right there.
Yeah, it is.
There we go. Yeah.
The answer to your question is yes. I feel really good about the way Oregon's defended the run. UCLA couldn't run the ball. Oregon State couldn't run the ball. Boise State able to run the football. Okay, Genty is ridiculous. Should Oregon's defense have played better? Right. Yes. Oregon's defense has played better. You have a secondary that has played well in coverage. They are really, really good defending the run. I mean, you got a fifth-year senior in Dante Manning who has proven himself to be, I think, a pretty solid tackler. Tysheem Johnson and Kobe Savage, both good tacklers, Tysheem especially in the run game. I just like the way this Oregon front six is playing. It's not a front seven because it's a 4-2-5 from Dan Lanning and company. And so you have to have at least one defensive back that can really help you in run support. Tysheem has been that guy for the last couple of seasons. Brandon Johnson has been phenomenal in coverage and man-to-man situations. Whoever Michigan State wants to put in the slot to run those deep post routes, you're going to see number 3 in yellow this week, or is what color Oregon is going to wear, which isn't surprising. They wore yellow, did they wear yellow last time they played Michigan State?
I believe so, if memory serves correct, at least at Autzen Stadium. When it was
Stadium. I think at Autzen they wore yellow, but they've got super cool. For Michigan State fans out there, if you haven't seen it, this is not a gushing over some random uniform that Oregon did. They have their Stomp Out Cancer uniforms this week that were designed with input from Sophia Lanning, coach's wife, and her 3 kids. They all got to show up and work with Nike and be a part of it. It was a really, really cool thing, and they put out a great video about it as well, and it was a really, really neat thing to see. But if Oregon's going to be able to stomp out the Michigan State running game, you like that transition right there.
That's why you're a pro. Yeah.
I try. I think that's the recipe for success. I really do. I just don't look at Michigan State, and based on what you've told me, I don't have any confidence in the passing game's ability to be consistent. They'll show flashes.
It's a consistent part, right?
Yeah. They'll show flashes. They'll have some easy throws where, they run the ball successfully a couple times, and then on 1st and 10, Brian Lindgren whips out the play action. Oregon over pursues. Tight end Jack Velling leads to the backside, and suddenly he's wide open because a linebacker vacated the zone. The corner's dropping off on a receiver who's covering the receiver that is supposed to vacate that particular area. I don't think they can line up on 3rd down and 8, 3rd down and 6, though, the way that Oregon is capable of, and just having a receiver go one-on-one or having your offensive line give you enough time with a quarterback that reads the defense correctly and makes an on-time, on-target throw. I think that's a really, really good formula for Oregon defensively, is stop the run first, and I feel really confident in their ability to do that.
I'm glad you brought those jerseys up to the Stomp Out Cancer, because we've already had the red bandana game, Boston College. Michigan State, we've been up some really good causes here. We've been behind the 8 ball here. We've gone against a 9/11 tribute and now a cancer tribute, so that. Great, that's a good look.
When you have the other team just with another reason to play inspired football,
yeah, great.
It's tough when you're already, probably outmatched on the field. But again, it's college football.
Yeah.
It's college football. It's a Friday night game.
Of course.
Everybody's on one less day of rest, though that would tend to favor the home team. In theory. In theory. That's where we'll leave that.
And we'll end right here on the offense. You guys, just like Michigan State did, you guys went shopping in the portal cycle. You got Dylan Gabriel, and he's got, a 127% completion
I think it's
percentage.
Up to 240, actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah, last time I checked, yeah.
No, in reality, it's 81.5%, and that's not a made-up number right now. But I noticed, it's not a sky-high amount of explosive plays in the pass game. So should we just be expecting, just quick-hitting throws, just keeping it simple out there, or what's the offense like that we should be expecting on Friday
You'll
night?
see a lot of the quick hitters. You won't see a lack of explosive plays. And that's another one of my keys to the game for the Ducks, is to create explosives, because if you do that, I think that kind of raises the urgency for Michigan State to get off of their script of run the football, control the clock, limit possessions. But for Oregon in the passing game this year, there are plenty of quick hitters. There are plenty of RPOs. It's a big part of the Will Stein offense. They're more than capable of pushing the ball down the field. Whereas 3 years ago with Mario Cristobal in charge, there was just no semblance of a downfield passing game. He has evolved, and it is doing Miami a lot of benefit because of it, because they're actually pushing it down the field. But Mario Cristobal, Anthony Brown 3 years ago, that was an offense that couldn't push it down the field, or didn't push it down the field. Oregon wants to have the quick hitter stuff. That's where they're going to start. But if you then creep up to the line of scrimmage, they have not one, not two, but 3 wide receivers that can beat you over the top. Tez Johnson can do that. Trayshawn Holden can do that. Evan Stewart can do that. They've all caught passes this year of 50 yards or more that have gone for touchdowns. Or Evan Stewart's, I guess he was tackled at the 5-yard line, and he had a 7-yard touchdown or so against Boise State. So the explosive capability is there. You will see Oregon get Gabriel into a rhythm, maybe with a halfback swing or just a quick hitch, which is how Chip Kelly always used to start every game, is he'd start everybody just run a quick 5-yard hitch, and Mario just pitches the ball out. That's how he started every game. And that's kind of what Oregon does. But if you start to get sucked in, they will go over the top.
And just like any good talking head show that you'll see, anywhere, but especially here in the Locked On Podcast Network, we got to end this thing with a prediction. Otherwise, they'll just take our shows away from us right under our nose.
They won't let us. Zach will literally shut down our feeds, lock us out of all the resources we need to upload our shows. Do you want to go first or second?
I will go first. I am going to go with Michigan State covering the spread. You'll tell by my score I'm not entirely confident with that, but I'm going to go Michigan State 17, being the second team this season to score more than 14 points on the Ducks. But then, Oregon, I'm going to go with the smooth 35. So that's where I'm going to go with.
I think that Oregon if they get off the field quickly defensively, can get over 40 points. I think Michigan State will find a way to run the ball at least a little, or they'll be at least committed to it enough where Oregon might, not have as much time of possession as they otherwise would. Sure. But I love Oregon's defense in this spot. I think they force a couple turnovers and win 38-10.
There we go. You've heard it here first. You will both hear from both of us. Or you will all hear from both of us. There we go. Nailed it. At the end of the game on Friday over there, that's Spencer, Locked On Ducks. Hey, what's up, gang? It's Matt from Locked On Spartans. Until next time,
I'm a terrible weatherman. Look at this point.
Oh, dude, I am
pointing at the sign.
When I try to point to things, I do it at a 10% hit rate. It's completely embarrassing.
It's so hard. It looks easy, and it's not. Shout out weathermen who are right like 30% of the time.
Yeah, whatever. But gang, that's right. Locked On Podcast Network. You know where to find both of us. We both do this every single day of the week, especially Spencer over there. Also, Spencer over there, Locked On College Football. Until next time, what a way to land this plane at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah. Let's somersault that sucker.
Take care of yourselves, everyone. We'll just restart this whole show. That's okay. All right. We'll see you guys. Good.